The shatter of glass exploded like a gunshot in the crowded Harvard living room, and Samuel's world tilted on its axis as his cousin's boyfriend hurled the accusation. "You think you can just fuck my friends and get away with it? You little fag." Blood roared in Samuel's ears, hot and deafening, as the room's laughter turned to a suffocating silence. Every face a mask of judgment under the sting of cheap bourbon and fairy lights. He bolted for the bathroom, the door slamming behind him like a coffin lid, but not before catching the stranger's gaze across the chaos. A man with storm-gray eyes who looked like he could unravel secrets with a single glance, now frozen amid the revelry, his hand still raised as if to stop the unraveling. Samuel slumped against the cool porcelain of the toilet, the party's bass thumping through the walls like a heartbeat he couldn't escape. His phone buzzed in his pocket, another Grindr notification he'd ignored all night, but he didn't check it. Not now. Not when his cousin, Eliza, was out there pretending this was just another pre-finals rager in her off-campus Victorian. The kind where trust fund kids from the business school rubbed elbows with wide-eyed undergrads like him, crashing from a community college transfer program that already made him feel like an imposter. Harvard. The word alone tasted like ash. He'd come to Boston for a fresh start after his small-town Ohio hell. Parents who prayed the gay away. High school lockers smeared with slurs. But tonight, it all curdled back into the familiar rot of rejection. The door creaked open without a knock, and Samuel's head snapped up, fists clenching. "Get out," he snarled, voice cracking like thin ice. But the man who stepped in wasn't some drunk jock come to gloat. He was older, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of effortless poise that screamed faculty lounge. Crisp white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded from weekend hikes in the Berkshires, not gym selfies. His hair was that perfect salt and pepper mess, like he'd just run a hand through it after lecturing on postmodern ethics or whatever professors bullshitted about at Ivy League cocktail hours. And those eyes, God, they pinned Samuel in place, a mix of concern and something sharper, hungrier, that made his stomach flip. "I'm not here to hurt you," the man said, his voice low and steady, laced with that East Coast polish Samuel had only heard in movies. Think Boston Brahmin meets indie film director. He eased the door shut behind him, the click echoing like a promise. "I saw what happened. That asshole, your cousin's boyfriend? He's got a mouth bigger than his trust fund. Name's Anthony. And you look like you could use a lifeline." Samuel barked a laugh, bitter and wet, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "A lifeline? From a suit like you? Save it for the undergrads you're probably sleeping with to feel relevant." It was a low blow, born of panic, but Anthony didn't flinch. Instead, he slid down the wall opposite the toilet, knees mirroring Samuel's, close enough that Samuel could smell his cologne, sandalwood and leather, the scent of old books and rainy Cambridge afternoons. "Touché," Anthony murmured, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "But I'm not here for conquests. I teach here comparative lit. Saw you across the room earlier, nursing that beer like it owed you money. You've got the eyes of someone who's read too much Baldwin and not enough Whitman." "Am I wrong?" Samuel's breath hitched. James Baldwin? He'd devoured Giovanni's room in secret under his dorm covers last semester, the words searing like a brand. This guy, Anthony, saw that? In a glance? It unnerved him, this stranger peeling back layers he'd spent years burying. "Samuel," he muttered finally, extending a shaky hand across the tile. "And yeah, you're not wrong. But if you're slumming it in bathroom therapy sessions, your syllabus must be drier than the Charles in July." Anthony's chuckle was warm, disarming, and when their palms met, the grip lingered, a beat too long, electric. Fair. But bathrooms have history. Think about it. Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, but with less essay and more existential dread. Tell me, Samuel, what brought you to Eliza's den of iniquity? Crashed the party? Or are you family? Cousin, Samuel said, pulling his hand back too quickly, heat crawling up his neck. She's the golden child legacy admit, sorority queen. I'm the stray she pities. Transferred in from Kent State feeder program. Thought a Harvard party might make me feel, I don't know, less like a fraud. Anthony nodded, leaning his head back against the wall, eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling like they held sonnets. Fraud's a universal language here. Half my students fake it till they intern at Goldman. The other half, they're like you, raw, real. Hungry, his gaze dropped then, locking on Samuel's, and the air thickened, charged with the unspoken. Samuel felt exposed, not just from the earlier humiliation, but from this man seeing him, really seeing him, in a way no one had since he'd fled Ohio. They talked for what felt like hours, though the party raged on outside, muffled laughter seeping under the door like smoke. Anthony shared stories of his own closets, growing up in a waspy Connecticut suburb, coming out in the 90s when AIDS was a death sentence and Reagan was still pretending it wasn't. I lost friends, he said quietly, swirling the dregs of whiskey from a flask he'd pulled from his jacket. Family cut me off faster than a bad metaphor. Harvard was my reinvention, tenure track at 35, but the loneliness, it's a river under the bridge. Silent, but it erodes. Samuel listened, mesmerized, the toilet forgotten as vulnerability bridged the gap between them. He confessed his own ghosts. The night his dad found his hidden stash of queer lit and burned it in the backyard. The hookups in truck stops that left him hollow. I came here for reinvention too, he admitted. But tonight proves I'm still just the kid they flush. Anthony reached across then, his fingers brushing Samuel's knee, not grabbing, just resting, anchor in the storm. You're not. You're a survivor. And survivors, they rewrite the narrative. The touch lingered, and Samuel didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in, heart pounding, as Anthony's thumb traced a slow circle, igniting sparks that raced up his thigh. The door rattled, someone pounding, slurring for the bathroom, but Anthony stood first, hauling Samuel up with him. Come on. Let's get you out of here. My place is a 10-minute walk, brownstone off Brattle Street. No strings, just coffee. Or tea, if you're that wholesome. Samuel hesitated, the party's venom still stinging. But those eyes, God, those eyes, promised more than escape. Yeah, he whispered. Lead the way, Professor. They slipped out the back, into the biting November wind off the Charles, Cambridge's gas lamps flickering like hesitant confessions. Anthony's arm brushed Samuel's as they walked, casual at first, then deliberate, a hand finding the small of his back. The brownstone was a scholar's dream, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with dog-eared hardcovers, a fireplace crackling low, jazz humming from a vintage turntable. Miles Davis, kind of blue. Anthony poured scotch, single malt, peaty as the Scottish moors, and they sank into the leather couch. The cities hum a distant lullaby. Conversation flowed like the liquor, Anthony dissecting the fire next time, Samuel countering with raw takes on Fun Home. Laughter came easy, then silences heavy with intent. When Anthony's hand found Samuel's again, this time on the couch, fingers interlacing, felt inevitable. "I shouldn't," Anthony murmured, but his body betrayed him, leaning in until their breaths mingled. "Why not?" Samuel challenged, voice husky. "Afraid I'll ruin your tenure?" Anthony's laugh was ragged. "Afraid you'll ruin me." Then his lips were on Samuel's, soft at first, exploratory, tasting of scotch and regret, then fierce, a dam breaking. Hands roamed, shirts tugged free, the fire's glow painting their skin in amber. They moved to the bedroom upstairs, a tangle of limbs and whispers, Anthony's experience guiding Samuel's urgency into something tender, profound. It wasn't just sex. It was communion, bodies speaking what words couldn't, two souls adrift finding harbor. Dawn crept in gray and unforgiving, Samuel waking to the scent of coffee and the weight of Anthony's arm across his chest. "Morning," Anthony murmured, kissing his shoulder. "Stay. Skip whatever seminar you've got." Samuel grinned, tracing the lines of age on Anthony's face, crow's feet from squinting at manuscripts, laugh lines earned in hidden bars. "Tempting. But Eliza's gonna kill me if I ghost." They parted with promises, texts, dinners, maybe a weekend in Provincetown. Samuel floated back to his cramped Alston apartment, the humiliation of the night before a faded bruise. Anthony's number burned in his phone. Professor A, call when you need unraveling. Weeks blurred into a fever dream. Stolen afternoons in Anthony's office. Door locked, papers shoved aside for hurried kisses. Late nights at dive bars in Somerville. Hands under tables, eyes locked over greasy burgers. Samuel aced his midterms, buoyed by Anthony's quiet encouragements. "You're brilliant, kid. Don't let this place dim that." Anthony, in turn, softened, the guarded professor cracking open, sharing Polaroids from his activist days marches in D.C., lovers lost to the epidemic. But cracks spiderwebbed in. Eliza cornered Samuel one rainy Tuesday in the quad, her sorority pin glinting like accusation. "What the hell? Sam, you vanish from my party. Then I hear you're shacking up with some old prof? Mom called. Said Dad's pissed you're throwing your life away on that scene." Samuel's stomach dropped. "How'd they?" "Instagram. Genius. You tagged a coffee shop near Brattle." Small world. Her eyes softened, though pity, not scorn. "Just be careful. Harvard eats queers like us for breakfast." The warning lodged like a thorn. Then came the texts from unknown numbers. Fairy prof and his boy toy? Cute. Screenshots of blurry photos, Anthony's hand on Samuel's waist at a poetry reading. Whispers in the dining hall. Heard the lit guys got a new TA. Fresh meat. Anthony dismissed it over takeout Thai, his foot hooked around Samuel's under the coffee table. "Tenure shields, babe. They'll tire of the gossip." But Samuel saw the strain, the way Anthony's eyes darted at faculty mixers, the canceled office hours. The betrayal hit like a nor'easter, fierce and without mercy. It was mid-December, snow blanketing the yard in deceptive purity, when Samuel got the email from an anonymous account. Subject: your professor's dirty secret. Attached photos. Not of them, but of Anthony. Younger, wilder, arms around a twink in a Greenwich Village club, timestamped last spring. Another, Anthony in a hotel room with a bearded grad student, post-dissertation celebration. The email's body was venom. He collects them like stamps. You're just the flavor of the month. Run, kid. Samuel's hands shook as he forwarded it to Anthony, storming the brownstone without knocking. Explain this, he demanded, thrusting his phone forward, voice raw. Anthony's face drained of color, the fire poker clattering from his grip. Samuel. It's not. Not what? Not you fucking your way through the department? How many? Anthony? How many survivors before me? Anthony reached for him, but Samuel jerked back. It was casual. Before you. I was lonely, drifting. But you, God, you're different. You see me. Liar. Tears burned hot. Samuel's chest heaving. You saw me too, broken, desperate. Fed me lines from books while you played house with strays. The fight escalated. Words like shrapnel. Anthony's pleas dissolving into sobs. Samuel's accusations laced with love's sharp edge. I thought this was real, Samuel choked. Not some midlife crisis fanfic. Anthony grabbed his wrist then, desperate. It is real. Stay. Let me prove. But Samuel wrenched free, bolting into the snow, the door slamming like finality. He crashed at Eliza's, ignoring the barrage of voicemails, Anthony's voice cracking, begging. Days bled into a haze of finals and eggnog-fueled avoidance. Christmas break loomed, a ticket home to Ohio purgatory, but Samuel couldn't face the flight. Not with the ache hollowing him out. The climax crashed on New Year's Eve, Harvard's bells tolling midnight as Samuel wandered the frozen riverbank, flask in hand, numb to the fireworks exploding over the skyline. Footsteps crunched behind him. Anthony, coat dusted white, eyes red-rimmed from more than wind. Go away, Samuel muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Anthony stopped a foot away, breath fogging the air. I can't. Not without saying this. I fucked up. Royally. But it wasn't betrayal, it was fear. Fear of this. He gestured between them, voice breaking. You, with your fire and your honesty, you make me want more than hiding. I resigned my TA supervision gig today. Told the dean about us. It's out there now. Consequences be damned. Samuel's heart stuttered. Why? Because love isn't a footnote. It's the whole damn book. Anthony stepped closer, tentative, cupping Samuel's face with gloved hands. I love you, Samuel. Not as a chapter. As the story. The kiss was salt and snow, desperate and redemptive. Fireworks burst overhead, but the real explosion was internal, forgiveness cracking through betrayal's ice. They stumbled back to the brownstone, shedding layers by the door, bodies reaffirming what words had fractured. It wasn't perfect. Scars lingered, trust a fragile rebuild. But in the quiet after, tangled in sheets, Anthony whispered plans, summers in Fire Island, joint applications for Samuel's grad school. A future, not a fling. Spring thawed Cambridge, cherry blossoms dusting the paths like confetti. Samuel graduated, summa, against odds, Anthony in the crowd, clapping fiercest. They moved in together that summer. The brownstone now there's bookshelves mingling Baldwin with Alison Bechdel. Whispers faded. Love, defiant, outlasted them. Years later, at their commitment ceremony in a Provincetown dune chapel, waves crashing like applause, Samuel glanced at Anthony, gray hair fuller now, eyes still stormy with promise. Who'd have thought? He teased. Rings glinting. A toilet stall could birth forever? Anthony pulled him close. The oceans roar their witness. Every great story starts in the mess. Love. And ours? It's the redemption arc. In the end, it wasn't tragedy or tidy happily ever after. It was human, flawed, fierce, enduring. Two men, once seated in despair, now standing tall in the light they'd forged. Harvard's shadow loomed, but their love, it outshone the yard. The first year blurred into a rhythm of tentative joys and buried landmines. Samuel navigating the postgrad haze while Anthony's tenure loomed like a guillotine. Cambridge in summer was a lover's paradise. Biking the Minuteman Trail at dawn, sweat slicked and breathless, collapsing into picnics by Spy Pond where Anthony read aloud from leaves of grass, his voice weaving Whitman's verses into the breeze. I celebrate myself and sing myself, Anthony intoned, eyes locked on Samuel's, and damn if it didn't feel like prophecy. But nights brought ghosts. Samuel, crashing on Anthony's couch after a nightmare, his dad's Bible-thumping voice echoing, "You'll burn, boy," woke to Anthony's arms, murmuring, "I've got you." Sex became their exorcism, slow, exploratory in the shower steam, or frantic against the kitchen counter. Anthony's hands mapping Samuel's freckles like constellations. "You're my North Star," he'd gasp, and Samuel believed it, even as doubt nibbled at the edges. Eliza played reluctant confidant, dragging Samuel to therapy sessions at the Student Health Center, hers, technically, but she slipped him in. "You're not your trauma," the counselor droned, a soft-spoken dyke with a PhD in resilience. Samuel nodded, but inside, he seethed, "Easy for you to say. You didn't grow up choking on love the sinner, hate the sin." Anthony attended one session, stiff in khakis, admitting his collector days had been avoidance, not conquest. "I built walls with bodies," he said, voice raw. Samuel tore them down. Fall semester hit like a freight train. Samuel enrolled in a master's program at BU, close enough for commutes, far enough to claim independence. His thesis on queer narratives in American Lit. Anthony's shadow loomed, advisory without overstepping. "You're the scholar here," Anthony insisted over diner pancakes, syrup dripping like honeyed lies. But jealousy festered, Samuel spotting Anthony's lingering glances at a lithe TA during department mixers, echoes of those leaked photos. The first real fracture came in October, leaves turning crimson as Samuel's phone lit up with a text from an old hookup. "Saw your prof at the Bauan last week. Cozy with that redhead barista." History repeats. Samuel's gut twisted, memories of betrayal surging. He confronted Anthony in the brownstone study, surrounded by stacks of unread journals. "Is it her? Or just the next warm body when I'm buried in footnotes?" Anthony's face crumpled, pen clattering. "Jesus, Sam, no. It was a faculty drink. Nothing. You're spiraling because finals are looming, and that's fair. But don't borrow ghosts." "Ghosts? They're flesh and blood," Samuel shouted, hurling a book, Giovanni's Room, irony biting. Pages fluttered like wounded birds. "You promised transparency." Or was that just pillow talk? The argument devolved into silence. Anthony retreating to his office, Samuel storming to the guest room. Days passed in frosty civility, coffee black. No cream. Conversations clipped as lecture notes. Eliza mediated over wine at her new Back Bay condo, fiancé in tow. "You two are idiots," she slurred, cheeks flushed. Love's not a seminar. It's messy. Forgive, or you'll end up like Mom and Dad, miserable martyrs. Samuel softened, returning with takeout falafel and an apology scrawled on a syllabus. Class in session. Lesson 1, Trust builds slowly. Anthony laughed, pulling him onto the rug by the fire, their reconciliation a slow burn, kisses tasting of hummus and hope. Winter brought reprieve, a road trip to Vermont for Anthony's birthday. Snowbound in a stow cabin, they skied cross-country trails, collapsing into featherbeds with mugs of spiked cider. "Remember that party?" Samuel murmured one night, tracing Anthony's collarbone. Toilet porcelain versus this, upgraded. Anthony's eyes darkened, hands sliding lower. Every upgrade's worth the fall. They made love by candlelight, bodies sinking like a well-rehearsed duet. Anthony's whispers, mine, always banishing shadows. But betrayal's echo lingered, manifesting in subtler stings. Samuel's internship at a Beacon Hill nonprofit, advocating for queer youth, clashed with Anthony's schedule. Late nights grading papers while Samuel counseled kids with stories mirroring his own. "You're changing the world," Anthony praised. But envy crept in. "He's out there, heroic. I'm trapped in ivory towers." A faculty dinner devolved when a tenured colleague, smug with bow tie and bourbon, jabbed, "Your boy toys got fire, Tony. Careful he doesn't burn the house down." Anthony's retort was ice. "He's my partner, Harold. And brighter than your last 3 syllabi combined." Samuel heard the tale secondhand, pride swelling even as fear gnawed. Partner. What if it's not enough? The climax brewed in spring, cherry blossoms mocking with their fleeting beauty. Samuel's thesis defense loomed, anxiety a constant hum, when he discovered the email chain, Anthony's inbox, accidentally left open on the laptop. Messages from the dean, concerns raised about favoritism. Your relationship with the BU candidate, optics matter. Step back, or risk review. Anthony hadn't mentioned it. Hiding again. Samuel packed a bag that night, heart fracturing anew. "You lied," he accused when Anthony walked in, snowmelt dripping from his coat, late from a colleague meeting. "The dean knows. And you buried it, like I'm some scandal to manage." Anthony's denial crumbled under Samuel's glare. "I was protecting us. Tenure votes in June. If they sniff weakness." "Weakness? That's me you're calling." Samuel's voice broke, bag slung over shoulder. "I'm done being your secret upgrade." He fled to Eliza's, the condo a temporary bunker. Anthony's calls went unanswered, voicemails a litany of pleas. "Come home. We'll fight this together." Samuel drowned in work, counseling sessions bleeding into his own therapy, the counselor probing, "Betrayal's a pattern. Is it him, or your past projecting?" Eliza staged the intervention over brunch at the Friendly Toast, greasy home fries as unlikely mediators. "He's a fool, Sam, but he's your fool. Grovel if you have to, but don't torch it over pride." Samuel returned at dusk, finding Anthony on the stoop, hollow-eyed, a bottle of Glenfiddich clutched like lifeline. "I resigned the vote," Anthony confessed, voice gravel. "Told the dean we're endgame. Optics be damned. I'd burn the department before losing you." The admission shattered Samuel's resolve. They collapsed inside, tears mingling with kisses, bodies reaffirming vows unspoken. "No more hiding," Samuel whispered, fingers threading Anthony's hair. "We face it together." Summer sealed the pact, A Cape Cod escape where they wrote letters old school, sealed with wax, like lovers in a Bronte novel. Anthony's words. You've taught me courage, Samuel. In you, I find my truest self. Samuel's reply, we're not a plot twist. We're the whole damn epic. Fall brought challenges. Protests on campus after a trans student's suicide. Samuel marching with signs while Anthony donated his adjunct salary to the cause. Their love deepened in activism's fire. Hands linked at rallies. Voices united in chants. Betrayal's scar faded to silver. A reminder, not a rupture. By winter's end, as snow gave way to mud season, Anthony proposed not with rings, but a shared tattoo in a Somerville parlor. Intertwined vines, thorns and all. Our story, he said, wincing through the needle. Messy, but ours. Samuel traced the ink later, in bed with rain-pattering windows. From toilet to this. Who knew? Anthony smiled, pulling him close. I did. From the first glance, the second year tested their alloy, forging strength from strain as Samuel's master's program intensified and Anthony's tenure sailed through. Ironically, bolstered by his bold authenticity, per the dean's backhanded toast at the ceremony. Champagne flowed in the faculty club, crystal clinking like fragile truces. But Samuel, in borrowed chinos, felt the outsider's itch. To Professor Whitmore, the provost boomed, for illuminating our halls, and perhaps a few hearts along the way. Laughter rippled, knowing, and Anthony's grip on Samuel's hand tightened under the table. A silent fuck them. Life settled into domestic poetry. Mornings with NPR droning election coverage. Obama's second term winding down. Hope's embers flickering, while Samuel brewed diner-style coffee, black as Anthony's moods before lectures. Evenings were rituals, Anthony grading under the desk lamp, Samuel sprawled with laptop, thesis revisions warring with freelance articles for The Advocate. Their bed was sanctuary, bodies entwined in lazy Sundays, Anthony's mouth tracing Samuel's hip bones, murmuring, "You taste like ambition and home," but conflict simmered beneath. Samuel's nonprofit gig expanded, leading workshops for at-risk queer youth in Dorchester tenements, faces echoing his Ohio youth, scared eyes, defiant sneers. "You're proof we survive," he'd tell them, voice steady, but inside, cracks widened. One kid, Jamie, a wiry 17-year-old with a black eye from his stepdad, latched on, crashing Samuel's office hours uninvited. "You get it, man. That prof of yours? He's lucky." Anthony bristled at mentions. Jealousy a low hum. "You're playing savior," he accused one night over cooling pad thai, chopsticks stabbing like accusations. "It's noble, but it's pulling you away. When's the last time we had a night just us?" Samuel's fork clattered. "Pulling me? You're the one buried in Foucault footnotes till midnight. I'm building something real, lives, not lit crit." The barb landed. Anthony's face shuddered. "Real? Our life's not real enough." Silence stretched, taut as bowstrings, until Samuel softened, hand over Anthony's. "It's everything. But those kids, they're me, before you. I can't unsee that." Reconciliation came in vulnerability, Anthony tagging along to a workshop, his professor poise cracking as Jamie spilled his guts. Runaway dreams, hookups gone sour. "Write your story," Anthony advised, echoing Whitman. Jamie nodded, teary, and later, in the car, Anthony confessed, "You're the hero here, Sam. I'm just the sidekick. No, Samuel murmured, kissing his knuckles at a red light. We're the team, yet betrayal specter stalked anew. Insidious. Spring brought a conference in NYC, Anthony's panel on queer modernism. Samuel tagging as +1. The after-party at Stonewall impulsed with history. Drag queens lip-syncing Gaga. Activists nursing whiskeys laced with manifestos. Anthony shone, cornered by admirers, a lithe adjunct from Yale, as like invitations, hand lingering on Anthony's arm during a toast. Samuel watched from the bar, gut churning, old photos flashing in his mind. He slipped out for air, Times Square's neon assault a blur, when Anthony found him, breathless. What's wrong? You, Samuel spat, voice slicing cold. Flirting like I'm not even there. History repeating, collecting accolades and asses. Anthony recoiled, hurt flashing. It was networking. Sam, God, you're projecting again, your dad's voice, not mine. The fight spilled into the hotel lobby. Voices hushed but venomous. Passers-by averting eyes. Maybe it is you, Samuel hissed. Maybe I'm just the latest redemption prop. Anthony's slap of words stung. Or maybe you're scared of being loved, really loved. So you sabotage. Samuel checked into a separate room. The night a vigil of regrets. Morning brought coffee and contrition. Anthony at his door. Roses wilting like apologies. I'm sorry. But we need help, couples therapy. Before this festers. Samuel nodded, pride yielding to preservation. Sessions with a Park Slope therapist, dry wit. Rainbow flag on the wall. Unearthed roots. Anthony's fear of abandonment from epidemic losses. Samuel's terror of invisibility. Love's a mirror, the therapist said. Face the reflections together. They did. Emerging bonded. The NYC scar a tattoo of growth. Summer healed in Martha's Vineyard ferries and beach bonfires. Anthony penning a dedication in Samuel's thesis, to the man who rewrites my endings. Samuel's reply, a playlist, born this way, same love, blasting from the Jeep as they race dunes. Fall's equinox marked equilibrium. Samuel defending his thesis with Anthony in the front row. Applause thundering like vindication. Post-ceremony, they celebrated at Legal Seafoods, oysters slurped with abandon. To us, Anthony toasted, foot teasing Samuel's calf. The plot thickens, but we endure. But life's drama escalated with Jamie's crisis. Stepdad's rage escalating to a hospital stay. Bruises blooming like accusations. Samuel drove through nor'easter gales to fetch him, installing the kid in their guest room temporarily. Just till Foster kicks in, he assured Anthony, who nodded tightly, masking unease. Jealousy brewed. Anthony, home to a house reeking of teen angst and microwave pizza, snapped one evening, "This isn't a halfway house. We're building our life, not a shelter." Samuel's retort burned. Our life? Or yours? Sanitized? He needs us, me. The chasm yawned. Jamie overhearing, fleeing into the storm. Samuel chased, finding him huddled at the T-stop, sobbing. You're safe, Samuel soothed, hugging fierce. Back home, Anthony waited, guilt etching lines. I'm the asshole, he admitted. Scared of losing you two. Everything. They talked till dawn. Jamie asleep upstairs, forging a pact. Boundaries for the kid. Date nights reclaimed. Therapy honed it. Anthony volunteering at the nonprofit. His stories from the 90s bridging generations. Jamie thrived, eventually placed with a gay couple in JP, but not before gifting them a drawing, two figures under stars, labeled heroes. Winter's solstice brought catharsis, a Yule log ritual, Anthony's pagan twist on holidays, flames devouring written fears, abandonment, inadequacy. Ashes swirled, promises renewed in the glow. Climax crested in February, Valentine's blizzard trapping them indoors. Power out, candles flickering. They slow danced to Coltrane on battery radio, bodies swaying. "Remember the party?" Samuel whispered, lips brushing Anthony's ear. That humiliation? It led here. Anthony's hands tightened on his waist. Every low's prelude to this high. Their lovemaking was worship. Slow, sacred, sealing fractures with sweat and sighs. Spring bloomed resilient. Samuel job hunting in Boston's queer orgs. Anthony mentoring without meddling. Betrayal's ghost, exorcised in honesty's light. One April Eve, under Harvard's blooming magnolias, Anthony knelt. Not proposal, but vow. Marry me? Legally. Provincetown summer. Ring simple, platinum band etched with vines. Samuel's yes was a sob, pulling him up into joy's embrace. From stall to altar. Our arc. Marriage planning became their new novel, chapters of vendor calls and seating charts, laced with laughter and logistics. Provincetown, the venue, a duneside inn with gabled roofs and Atlantic views, booked for July. No stuffy tuxes, Samuel decreed over sketches. Linen shirts, bare feet in sand. Anthony acquiesced, charmed by Samuel's vision, though his list's guest tallies, vows drafted on legal pads, betrayed the academic's precision. Work wove in. Samuel landed a coordinator role at Fenway Health, counseling expanding to policy advocacy, late nights drafting grants while Anthony prepped sabbatical lectures on queer diaspora. "You're glowing," Anthony noted one dawn, watching Samuel type furiously, coffee forgotten. "Changing the world, one memo at a time." "And you're my anchor," Samuel replied, stealing a kiss before the commute. Conflicts arose domestic. Anthony's mother, icy Connecticut socialite, thawed slightly by pride emails, insisted on flying in, her blessings laced with microaggressions. Such a modern ceremony. She cooed over Skype, pearls clutched. Samuel bristled, but Anthony mediated. "She's trying, Sam. Give her the arc." Eliza, maid of honor, hosted the shower in her expanded back bay loft, now with nursery corner, her pregnancy a glowing secret. Drag queens from Club Cafe performed, lip-syncing single ladies with ironic flair, while gifts piled. Monogram towels from Anthony's colleagues, a leather-bound journal from Jamie, now 18, thriving at Emerson. "Write your next chapter," the inscription read. But undercurrents stirred. A colleague's email to Anthony, CC'd accidentally to Samuel, hinted at rumors. Whitmore's domestic bliss, or midlife pivot, echoes of old scandals, amplified by marriage news. Samuel's paranoia flared during a rehearsal dinner dry run at the inn, spotting Anthony deep in conversation with a vacationing ex, the bearded grad student from photos, now a Brooklyn novelist, arms slung casual. Coincidence, Samuel hissed later, waves crashing like accusations. Anthony sighed, wind whipped. Ancient history, Sam. He's here for the lit fest. Trust, remember, doubt nod. Therapy session rerouted to crisis mode. Patterns repeat if unexamined. the therapist warned. Samuel journaled it out, pages filling with fears. Am I enough? Or just the safe harbor after storms? Climax brewed in June. Heat wave smothering Boston. Tempers fraying. Samuel's grant deadline clashed with tux fittings, snapping over hem lengths. It's fabric, not fate. Anthony exploded. Tyascu. Everything's fate with you. Controlled. Cataloged. Samuel shot back. Storming the beach. Salt air-cooled fury. But betrayal's phantom loomed when he found Anthony's phone buzzing. Text from the ex. Miss our talks. Congrats on the ball and chain. Drinks post-vows? Heart-pounding. Samuel confronted at dawn yoga on the dunes. Mat unrolled like battlefield. Drinks? After everything. Anthony paled. Deleting mid-swipe. Polite nothing. But you're right, I should have shown you. No shadows. The fight unearthed rot. Anthony's lingering loneliness. Samuel's scarcity mindset from youth. We're equals, Anthony vowed. Palms pressed to Samuel's. No exes. No doubts. Just us. Forgiveness flowed in tears and tandem breaths. The sun rising on recommitment. They revised vows that week. Raw. Unscripted. Anthony's. I choose you. Daily. In mess and magnificence. Samuel's. You're my plot. My peace. My pulse. The wedding dawned cerulean. P-Town buzzing with tourists and tulips. Guests milled. Eliza radiant. Bump hidden under chiffon. Jamie. Best man. Fidgeting with cufflinks. Anthony's mom. Stoic in seersucker. Dabbing eyes during readings. Alison Bechtel excerpts. Voice trembling. Officiant. A leather daddy Unitarian with tattooed vows. Pronounced them amid cheers. Sand dollars exchanged as rings. The kiss. Salt-kissed. Endless. Waves applauding. Reception tent glowed with lanterns. Lobster rolls and locavore salads fueling toasts. Jamie's. From lost kid to witness. You saved each other. Dance floor ignited. At last for the couple. Etta James crooning as Anthony twirled Samuel. Linen shirts damp. Laughter free. But humanism's thread wove deeper. A quiet moment with Jamie. Confessing college crushes. Anthony's mom pulling Samuel aside. I was wrong. He's whole with you. Honeymoon in Key West. Conch fritters and catamaran sunsets. Sealed bliss. Bodies lazy in hammocks. Hands entwined. Husband. Samuel tested. Grin wide. Anthony's eyes misted. Always was. Now it's legal. Back in Cambridge. Routine resumed with rings glinting. Samuel's advocacy pushing bills through Beacon Hill. Anthony's sabbatical birthing a book. Closets and Canons. Queer Love in American Lit. Dedicated to S. My co-author in life. Yet trials persisted. Fall's foliage masked a health scare. Anthony's annual checkup flagging irregular heartbeat. Stress from rumors reignited by the book's buzz. It's nothing, he downplayed. But Samuel insisted on specialists. Nights in Mass General's glow. Holding hands through EKGs. Fear's the real killer, Anthony joked. Pale in gown. But vulnerability bonded. Samuel reading bedside from the Velvet Rage. Affirming, we heal together. Clear scans brought relief. But the brushfire kindled philanthropy. Anthony endowing a queer lit fellowship. Samuel co-chairing health forums. Betrayal's lessons? Channels for good. Winter solstice marked anniversary. You'll log reborn with wedding ash. Fears burned. Hopes inscribed. Longevity. Legacy. Flames danced. mirroring their spark. Climax revisited in spring. Samuel's promotion interview clashing with a donor gala. Go, Anthony urged. Shine. Samuel did. Nailing the pitch, expanded youth programs funded, but returned to an empty brownstone. Anthony's note. Called away. Emergency Department MTG. Love. Paranoia spiked. Until truth. A surprise party. Eliza's orchestration. Balloons and bourbon. You doubted? She teased. Hugging. Old habits, Samuel admitted, pulling Anthony close amid cheers. Summer cycled to P-Town reunions. Dunes their confessional. We're unbreakable, Anthony murmured, stars wheeling above. Samuel nodded, heart full. Forged in fire, decades dawn crept subtle, years stacking like Cambridge bricks, solid, weathered, etched with ivy. Samuel, now director at Fenway, helmed initiatives from prep clinics to pride floats snaking Boylston. Anthony's book birthed lectureships, tours from Seattle to Savannah, but home remained anchor. The brownstone expanded with a garden studio, sunflowers nodding to Samuel's Ohio roots. Aging's poetry emerged, Anthony's hair silvering fully, Samuel's laugh lines deepening from workshop grins. Mornings, joint runs along the esplanade, breaths sinking to Boston by the piano guys, coffee post-jog in mugs monogrammed W&W. Whitmore and Whitmore, Anthony quipped. Sounds like a law firm for lovers. Samuel chuckled, but undercurrents stirred. Jamie's wedding, to a barista poet, ceremony in Emerson's hall, stirred paternal pangs. We'd have made hellacious parents, Samuel mused post-toast, dancing cheek to cheek. Anthony's squeeze tightened. Adoption? Or just the dog we keep dodging? Talks turned serious over fall foliage drives to the Berkshires. Leaf peeping as foreplay. B&B beds warmed by firesides. Kids, Anthony tested. Wine loosening tongues. Queer family fostering. Maybe. Like we did Jamie. Samuel's yes was tentative. Therapy unpacking baggage. Am I ready to parent my scars? Sessions unearth joys. Imagining little ones in the garden. Story hours with Baldwin board books. But conflict crested midwinter. Anthony's sabbatical offer. Guest professorship in Oxford. Michaelmas term. 9 months, he framed. Ice pleading. Career capstone. We've never done long distance. Samuel's gut nodded. Distance? After everything? Feels like exile. Fights flared. Anthony's idealism. It's Paris in the 20s. Hemingway's. Clashing Samuel's pragmatism. We're not 20. We're built on proximity, not postcards. Betrayal's shade loomed when Samuel found the acceptance letter, dated months back. You decided alone? He accused. Snow blanketing the yard outside. Anthony deflated. Scared you'd say no. But it's us or nothing. The chasm echoed old riffs. Samuel retreated to Eliza's. Now a mom to twins. Chaos of sippy cups and story time. Fight for it, she advised. Burping a baby. Or lose the spark. Reconciliation brewed in vulnerability. Anthony flying to a Boston mediator. Mid-Atlantic compromise. Samuel visiting terms abroad. Virtual dates via FaceTime feasts. Hybrid hearts. Anthony dubbed it. Packing with Samuel's teas in his suitcase. Oxford interlude tested. Samuel's solo bed cold. Calls laced with longing. Miss your snores, he joked, but tears betrayed. Anthony's letters, airmail, archaic, poured devotion. Towers here echo our first night, cold stone, warm promises. Climax hit in Hillary term. Samuel flying over for reading week. Rainy spires, punts on the charwell. Anthony's college rooms. Harry Potter whimsy meets scholars' clutter. Reunion. Frantic. Fogged windows in a cab from Heathrow. Bodies reclaiming in the porter's shadow. But storm broke at a high-table dinner. Anthony's host. Tweedy Dawn. Probing. Your American consort? Quite the activist. Does he cramp your style? Wine-fueled retorts flew. Anthony defended fierce. But Samuel stormed the cloisters. Ancient stones mocking. You let him diminish us, Samuel seethed. Rain sheeting. Anthony's apology was raw. Insecurity's my demon, not yours. I'm all in, always. They mended in a Cotswolds cottage rental. Thatched roof leaking like confessions. Hikes through sheep-dotted hills. Hands clasped. Nights with shepherd's pie and sonnets. No more solos, Anthony vowed. Our story's duet. Returned to Boston. Reinvigorated. They pursued fostering Jamie's twins as inspiration. Classes. Home studies. The brownstone prepped with bunk beds. Walls painted sky blue. First placement. Twin boys. 6. From a raid on a conversion camp, wide-eyed. Wary. Safe here, Samuel whispered, tucking them in. Anthony reading The Giving Tree. Challenges mounted. Nightmares shattering silences. School meetings laced with bias. They're us. Remixed. Anthony noted, bandaging a scraped knee. Samuel nodded. Love expanding. Humanism's arc peaked in crisis. Elder twin. Milo. Regressing, hoarding food. Flinching at touch. Therapy unearthed horrors. Samuel's own triggers flared. Nights pacing with ghosts. We can't fail them, he confessed to Anthony. Dawn breaking. We won't, Anthony affirmed, pulling him to the studio easel, painting as catharsis, colors bleeding like emotions. The boys joined, tiny brushes defiant. Summer solstice. Placement solidified. Adoption papers filed. Family now messy, mighty. Provincetown reunion with Jamie's crew. Dunes hosting barbecue vows renewed. To expansions, Anthony toasted. Milo on shoulders. Fall's harvest brought closure. Anthony's Oxford book. Across the pond. Transatlantic queer bonds. Launched in Harvard Hall. Samuel introducing. My husband. My muse. Standing ovation. Twins clapping sticky hands. Winter's embrace. You'll log with 4 flames now. Fear's ash. Dreams inscribed. Family. Forever. Snow fell soft. Blanketing sins. Decades end. Samuel. 40-ish. Gray at temples. Anthony. Silver fox eternal. Brownstone bustled, boys in college tees. Dog finally adopted. A mutt named Whitman. Evenings. Porch swings. Jazz low. Hands entwined. From that party, Samuel mused one twilight. Charles glittering. Toilet despair to this tapestry. Anthony kissed his temple. Redemption's not ending. It's every thread. Their story, unfinished symphony. Dramatic, emotional, romantic, raw, human, holy. In America's heart, 2 men wove love's enduring quilt, stitches strong against unraveling winds.